Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're doing very well today, and I hope you are ready for another trip to Frogtown. Well, where's Frogtown, and what's Frogtown, you might be asking? Well, we've got a frog, we've got the Gitrog Monster, and we are a Value Town deck. We are playing a great many permanents that can snowball the game and can generate a ton of value the turn they come down. There's not a whole lot of ETB value in a deck like this. It's more like, Value Town implies that if threats stick and go unanswered, they will snowball the game. And that also implies, and this deck is no exception, that there's a lot of land-related synergies. So, the build-around card here is Heartless Summoning. 1 generic, 1 black enchantment. Creature spells you cast cost 2 generic less to cast, and creatures you control get -1/-1. That second line of text is unfortunate, but it is the price we pay for the ability to seriously cheat on mana, and you'll note as you cast an eye over our list that none of our creatures have toughness 1, so nothing will outright die, it will just get a little bit smaller, right? And the other thing you'll note is you look over literally every main deck threat besides Gilded Goose, which I don't even know if we could call that a threat, but every other creature in the main deck besides Goose and most of the sideboard cards, they all have 2 generic mana or more in their casting cost, right? So, in other words, we're casting Tireless Tracker, Ramunap Excavator, Dryad of the Ilysian Grove, all for 1 green. So you can see the power of Heartless Summoning. The ideal line with a deck like this is probably turn 1 Disruption, honestly, Inquisition of Kozilek, or Fatal Push, into turn 2 Heartless Summoning, into, turn 3, let's say, Tracker, play a land, and then you can start making all kinds of clues if you then play Dryad into a second land drop, or maybe you've got Ramunap Excavator involved and you start ghost quartering or grasping dunesing the opponent out of the game. You see how all of that can go very, very well for us. We also have some really scary finishers at the top end. Gitrog Monster and Ob Nixilis the Fallen both can be cast on turn 3, or both can be cast on turn 4 with Disruption backing it up, or with Guaranteed Landfall trigger in the case of Ob Nix. Either way, both of these threats are insane when powered out 2 turns ahead of curve, which is what we plan to do. Gitrog Monster is just going to churn us through our deck like nobody's business, while being a gigantic Death Touch frog horror. And Ob Nixilis can legitimately, 20-0 somebody in almost no time, just with the landfall triggers alone, alongside things we've mentioned like Excavator and Dryad, right? To say nothing of Ob Nix himself becoming a gigantic threat along the way. Rounding out the main deck, we have, other top-end cards. We have an Oracle of Mul Daya, just another source of card advantage and synergy. But specifically advantage that's not contextual upon anything other than the top of the deck. Could be very nice to have access to that. And Vraska Golgari Queen, who is another interactive piece. We do need to play some amount of interaction in a deck like this. And Vraska has all kinds of really nice synergies here. She synergizes really well with Gilded Goose. You can cash in the food token, or indeed the goose itself, as the case may dictate, for that sweet +1. She synergizes really well, +2. Yeah, +2. Synergizes really well with Tireless Tracker in that if you sacrifice a clue to Vraska, you still get to draw the card, but you don't have to pay the 2, and so that can be a very mana-efficient way to go about things. And on top of that, when we're able to just play lands out of our graveyard, it's pretty free to cash a land, right? Cash in a land for a +1 life, +1 card boost to our resources, and then working our way back down, we have, in addition to the stuff I kind of mentioned, only 5 total discard spells, so certainly less interaction dense than a traditional green-black deck, but we aren't one, right? So I mentioned the discard, 5 total. 3 Inquisition, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Fatal Push. We also have 2 copies of Collective Brutality, which is a well-positioned card right now. It just gives us more main deck interaction because we play fewer pieces of interaction. It makes some sense that we want the interaction we do include to be modal, if we can. And also, just another way that we benefit from being able to play the lands from the graveyard is, under some circumstances, we can more aggressively escalate. and 2 copies of Assassin's Trophy kind of round out the spells in the main deck. Again, when we have more limited slots dedicated to interaction, they need to be more well-rounded, more catch-all. Trophy is nothing if not a catch-all, right? Let's take a quick look at the land base before we look at the sideboard. We have 8 fetch lands and 8 fetchable lands, because with all of the churning through our deck that we're doing and all the buying back of lands, we definitely don't want to run out of fetchable lands to get, but at the same time, fetch lands themselves are not something we can skimp on, because not only are they, as always, very good, we do play the full 4 Tireless Tracker, right? So we really, really want to maximize Tracker's power. And we also have full 4 copies of Ghost Quarter. This is a big part of the game plan. We can play some Ghost Quarter tricks of our own, targeting our own land base for landfall triggers as the case may be, but overall, this is actually a major win condition of the deck, is just being able to disrupt and then power out an early Ramunap Excavator and loop Ghost Quarter at least once per turn to GQ the opponent out of the game. You can kind of do a board control version of that Wasteland plan via Grasping Dunes, which is a slow card. It's kind of an underpowered card, but in the context of this deck is really, really good. And for those who don't know, I actually played a similar variant to this one time before in the past. Grasping Dunes was actually an all-star, and believe it or not, we actually did cash that league. 2 copies of Peatland. Again, this can be looped with a Ramunap Excavator. It's just a good green-black land in general. And a Golgari Rot Farm. This is one innovation that I just kind of had on the fly when talking with our donor, who was very kind. Connor Smith is the donor here, new Tireless tier supporter, and he is very, very kind in terms of receiving all of my somewhat baseless, at least if we're going from experience, changes that I proposed to the list. And to be fair, Connor did give me a couple points of pushback on things that he didn't think were such good ideas, and I actually agree with him once he laid out the logic. For example, I suggested Courser of Truffix, and he linked me to a little bit of a write-up that said, no, this isn't necessarily where we want to be, here's why. And I said, okay, that makes total sense. But other changes that I made, Connor went along with, and Golgari Rot Farm is something that just came to my mind. We do play 3 Dryad, 1 Azusa. We can definitely stand to benefit from a bounce land. So Golgari Rot Farm. I should mention about Gilded Goose, you will not always open on Heartless Summoning, and it seems too slow, too weak to play cards that tutor for enchantments, that commune with the gods or whatever that card is. So Gilded Goose is kind of an alternative ramp piece when we don't open on summoning, or maybe when they answer our summoning. And also, as always, it is the mid-range monodork of choice because it has ETB value and can continue generating value all throughout the rest of the game if it goes long. Moving on to the sideboard, we have a mix of green-black staples in the current metagame and other cards that you will only ever really see in a Frogtown list. So the staples, we're all familiar with: Plague Engineer, Ashiok, Dreamrender. We have a Maelstrom Pulse on the side, and we also have a Liliana the Last Hope. Can't really argue with any of this stuff. A lot of it just does stuff that our deck otherwise will not really be able to do. Plague Man in general is something I believe came from me as a suggestion, and, a 1-mana Plague Man seems pretty good to me, right? Definitely hard to replace this effect with other effects. It's just that good. Veil of Summer ×2, Grafdigger's Cage ×1. We are a little bit light on the old graveyard hate here, but we do have such ridiculously value-dense progressions that, unlike a traditional BGX deck, we might actually be able to go toe-to-toe with, Dredge if they're going off to some degree, if we can just disrupt a little bit, right? And then after that, it kind of gets into the territory of stuff you don't see as often or almost at all. Chameleon Colossus is a really cool one. This is kind of a blast from the past in that it actually used to not be that unreasonable to play like this in your green-black rock sideboard in the heyday of Death Shadow and before Modern got really, really crazy in terms of jumping ahead in power level. Registering a Colossus it made a lot of sense. In this deck, it goes back to making a lot of sense because you can, once again, just power it out ahead of schedule. And ditto Thrun. Thrun with that 2 generic mana in his cost, it becomes a lot more appealing. Even if you're waiting till turn 4 still to play him, you can play him and hold up the regen shield. And of course, Thrun is actually reasonably positioned right now compared to how he's been positioned in the recent past. Thragtusk, Same story here, just a crazy value positive permanent in so many ways and justifiable due to our ramp potential. Obstinate Baloth, a card that is very good anti-Liliana of the Veil tech, and again, much more justifiable in a Heartless Summoning deck. And finally, a card you won't see anywhere else, I assume, Grazing Gladehart, which I was pretty psyched about, just the idea of just playing with this card because it's kind of novel to me. But it's a 2/2 for 3 with a landfall trigger of gaining 2 life. You know where that's going to come in. So, this is our list. Let's see what we can do with it. Thank you so much for being here, my friends, for watching, and thank you above all to Connor Smith. I did mention Connor briefly, but to expand, Connor is a new Tireless tier supporter. He's only been around a little while, yet he immediately, or I should say almost immediately, ponied up for this donation league. So thank you, Connor, for your generous Patreon support, as well as your generous direct donation for Frogtown. And Connor is clearly a spice master, because the other alternative links that he gave me to lists that he was interested in seeing me play were even spicier than this one, if you can believe it. We're talking about stuff like Journey to Eternity is a build around, so definitely some pretty cool stuff. Just a little bit about Connor. He is a old Splinter Twin player who was later in life able to afford Jund, and he's been hopping around decks ever since. Let's see. Yeah, we'll keep this hand. But he keeps returning to green-black as a color combination, and definitely very, very cool stuff. Connor also wanted me to give a shout-out to Reddit user Pack Buck Brew. I hope I got that correct, who is something of a guru as it concerns this deck that we're playing today, as it concerns Frogtown, right? So, good times. Thank you again, Connor. Really appreciate you. And let's see what we can do here. Let's see if we can manage to cash another league. Well, right away our Goose draws a Bolt. I guess that's a bit of a win in and of itself. I'm going to play the Overgrown Tomb tapped. We are against some kind of Prowess deck, and while we could, I assume rather, and while we could have played a basic land to hold up the food token, I don't think we quite need to do that at this stage of the game. Okay, Inquisition of Kozilek. Interesting. I was going to say, let's play Excavator. If we lose it, it's not that big a deal with the 4th land waiting in hand, but now I just think we should Inquisition, hold up the food token. That seems totally fine. Good draw. Okay, 2 Bone Crusher Giants and a Lava Dart. Pretty easy take of a Giant here, and the opponent's got a very value-positive progression as well. There is also Obosh the Prey Piercer waiting in the wings, so I was too busy reading my shoutouts there and failed to recognize that they declared a companion, so this is not Prowess at all. It's like a mono-red aggro deck, right? There's going to be a lot of overlap, but you understand the... Here, let's gain some life. You understand the distinction, right? Okay, well, we are actually going to struggle to deal with Obosh, and the opponent looks like they're going to cast it pretty early. So we're probably going to need to draw an Assassin's Trophy sooner rather than later. To that end, even though Tracker could die to their Lava Dart, if they have not drawn another burn spell, it actually works majorly to our advantage if they have to cash in a mountain to finish the Tracker. So it's extremely value positive, even if they have a clean answer to her. And of course, we hope they don't. But they do. They go Lightning Bolt, sure. Bone Crusher smacking us for 4. He plays Mountain into putting Obosh in hand. Got it. Alright, well... We're not really drawing much here, are we? Just more lands, but to be fair, that's why Tireless Tracker is such a good card. So let's just make all the clues, and I'm going to just crack 1 main phase, forcing them perhaps to have another Lightning Bolt or similar card to cleanly answer Tracker. If not, if they just go to attacks, it'll be a really interesting call. Okay, they just hard cast Obosh. Okay, so we're going to take 8 if we don't block this, so I think we just kind of have to trade. Feels bad, but again, the tracker is like a solid 3 for 2 in our favor there. Now we just gotta draw a trophy, and our position's actually awesome. So far, we're not drawing the trophy. Alright, crack a clue. Oh my goodness. Lands and Gilded Geese. Crack another clue. We're all in on drawing the trophy. Gotta answer, Obosh. We haven't done it, so... Just kind of trying to decide whether I would rather use my turn playing Goose, generating a food token, making a chump blocker. It's pretty bad in the face of Lava Dart, but we might kind of have to. Like, there's every chance they just kill us. So, even though it's a really good way to just throw away a Gilded Goose, and it's not as mana efficient as cracking a clue, I think we're going to do it just to give us the chance of not dying, because remember, they have 2 unknowns in hand, plus the redraw of Sunbaked Canyon, and everything, including Lava Dart, in their deck, I assume, is going to be doubled in damage. They're playing a more value-oriented game here. Draw the 3rd Bone Crusher Giant's obviously pretty rough, right? So we're in big trouble now that they found another threat. Even if we draw a trophy, it's probably not good enough, and we're just hitting only lands. A familiar sight. Collective Brutality. Not very good against their go big red aggro deck, right? So, at least not at this exact juncture. So I think we're just cracking yet another clue. Alternatively, we could, like, if we had Painless lands in hand, I would say maybe we begin by playing Azusa or something. But I'm just going to crack another... Oh, no, sorry. Cancel. Whoops, I almost misread my food token as a clue token. Alright, this changes things, so... We have one more of each basic land to fetch. Alright, I'm certain we're dead. Not gonna tank too long over this decision. Collective Brutality to gain life does not feel correct. I think we need to, like, set it up so it's a kill spell. We know Lava Dart is in their hand. There's only one other unknown. But the fact that they fired it off on the end step means that we're definitely dead, right? Because otherwise they would have waited till their turn to just clear out the board and kill us on the attack. Oh, yeah, well, I guess we should have main phased the food. We're just dead. I mean, there's no way we win either way. But we should have main phased the food before we went to their turn. Obviously, doesn't matter. We cannot beat those cards whatsoever. So, yeah, this seems... I don't know how this matchup should seem. We definitely drew the wrong stuff in the opening hand. We needed to find trophies. We needed maybe to power out... Like, the trackers were amazing there, but we needed to power out something big to deal with that board. Like, Gitrog to present Death Touch, Ob Nix to outsize their stuff. Something like that would have possibly gotten us there. So, the builds vary. Plague Engineer is actually okay against some mono-red variants because they might play X1s. I'm thinking of things like Bomat Courier. However, that is a big if. And it's kind of medium more broadly as a 2-2 that dies to Bolt, Lava Dart, any shock effects they might have. Things like Seal of Fire or whatever it might be in the deck, right? So, you know, strangely, Thrun the Last Troll is not the worst either. Again, remember, the context of our deck is to ramp things out. So I think we have to play all the life gain, The life gain comes attached to value permanents in this deck. That's all great. I definitely want Maelstrom Pulse as well. And so those 6 cards have to come in. Then we'll consider a couple of Plague Men and even the Thrun maybe we'll consider. So let me take a moment here to see what is bad. Alright, so I'm kind of thinking, you can justify a Thoughtseize, but I think in our case we should cut it. Trackers seem a little bit worse due to their low toughness and the slow nature of their advantage, and Oracle and Azusa are just extremely fragile against a deck with a lot of red removal. So I think this 60's fine. I also think, again, we could find maybe space for Thrun and Plague Engineer. But without seeing more of their deck, maybe we just submit like this. I think every card that remains is pretty great in the matchup. Let's do it. Let's beat the Obosh deck. The Obosh deck, right? Okay, well, this hand is like okay if Goose lives, or if we just draw lands. I think it's kind of a medium hand. Do we keep a medium hand in this matchup on the play? The fail rate obviously is that we don't hit the lands, and also they bolt the Goose on sight like they did in game 1. But if Goose sticks, we can go like turn 2 Ramunap Excavator off of Goose. And if that sticks, then we're off to the races, setting up for Grazing Gladehart value. We do have one of our high value removal spells that we sided into. I think I'm going to keep it, but there's a lot I don't like about it, namely the fail rate is what I don't like about it. Also, having Defection Shock on turn 1 doesn't thrill me here. OP keeping 7, huh? Gotta remember that we don't have a ton of super high impact stuff to mulligan aggressively toward. Collective Brutality is worse here than it is against like any other burn or prowess deck. If their game 1 progression is anything to go by. So we only have 3 Inquisitions, 2 Fatal Pushes, and the Brutalities, which again are kind of subpar relative to what you might assume in terms of early interaction. Therefore, if we're not keeping a hand like this, maybe the question is, what are we really keeping? Obviously, again, it could be better, but... Alright, so bad news, they bolt the bird. Good news is we drew the Marsh Flats anyway, so we are making our land drops. And we really just want to make a natural 4th land drop. That way we're going to get guaranteed value on turn 4 off of Gladehart or Tracker, whatever the better play looks like. OP play another Swifty, and we'll pulse him. No. Okay. Blister Coil weird. Okay, we're seeing the X1s for sure. I think we kind of need a second green, so once again we're going to leave the food around instead of cracking it quite so early. Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Definitely an awkward one, just because we don't have another land to play. So we just have to play Excavator here, or we just have to pulse a 1-drop. Can't really bring myself to pulse a 1-drop. We have to play for a higher upside than this. If Excavator sticks, we get to do a lot of good stuff next turn. But, okay. We're also rewarded... We're also rewarded by drawing the Pulse. Or, excuse me, by them playing a Swifty for holding the Pulse. So they would need to have 2 instant spells to punish us for blocking the weird. And if we just let it all through, and it's burn, we're taking 9 plus the burn, we could die if we don't block, right? So I think either way, whether they do or they don't have the nuts, we are supposed to assign a block here. And we might as well go for the option to kill, right? Opponent's got a stomp. Okay, so we at least get to trade. We've drawn another excavator, but I think now we've got to take a turn off to Pulse. Missing the land drops, kind of bad though. We got the third one right away, which is really good. Ooh, opponent just keeping the threats coming. They've got the gas. They've got the rebuild with Bomat Courier. This is a really tough progression to handle. Okay, and we have a land. We found a land. So, I guess the responsible thing here is to play Gladehart and gain 4 life. If they cannot outright kill this, we can stick an Excavator next turn and maybe start to try to compete with them in a realistic way, value-wise. Always yes, always yield. We're just going to do it right now, even though we don't have another Shockland to get. And this betrays that we don't have Fatal Push because likely we would have used it to push right then and there. Whether we value getting the Revolts off of Bone Crusher Giant or killing Courier before it gets to draw. Opponent with their last card is light up the stage and land, and then they light up into 2 1-drop spells, which literally could not possibly be any worse for us. Especially because when you realize the 5th land not only helped them curve out like that, they're also going to cast their companion with it next turn. So I don't think we can win anymore. Feels bad. What can we do here? Excavator, buy back a land, and gain life with food is like possibly our best line. Nothing else does anything. We can Gladehart and then Ghost Quarter ourselves to gain 2 life. Whatever we play is just going to die to Bolt unless we play Dryad. Dryad doesn't die to Bolt. But then Bolt just going upstairs, like, I just don't think we can win, can we? Well, I'm going to play the blocker that doesn't die to Bolt. But I'm afraid, my friends, we are getting well and truly rocked here in round 1 with Frogtown. Sorry, I guess my client was lagging. Alright, OP. Do your thing. Well, my client's still lagging. Apologies. Don't know quite what's up with that. I'm seeing that the OP has priority, but yeah, it's taking a while for their plays to come through on our end. OP with the land. Okay, we are back. I am going to have to splice that first one together. I had to restart some stuff. I don't quite know what was going on, but we had a major lag issue that I believe came from the client, but you never quite know. Anyway, the game is over shortly after I might have lost coverage, and we didn't really have much of a chance. I potentially overvalued Goose in the opening hand. Maybe we should have mulliganed to a hand with a little more early interaction and or Heartless Summoning. I am not entirely sure. In any case, it's on to round 2, and here we do have the interaction and the Heartless Summoning. This is a keep, but we actually still need to draw lands. As you can see, there's kind of a lot that needs to come together in order for this deck to really work, but hopefully we will manage to get there this time. And when in the dark, I always lead on Inquisition over Goose. I think that's always correct, right? Oh my god, big mana. Scapeshift, Growth Spiral, Opt, and Wilt. Maybe we have to take the Wilt, because it kills our Heartless Summoning. Kinda sad, but I actually think that's pretty much the case. Yeah, without summoning, we're not going to beat a big mana deck under any circumstances, so... Good luck, have fun to our polite opponent here, wishing us well. Despite their choice to play a Valakut deck, I wish them well as well. So the good news is we do have some progressions that allow us to GQ them really heavily out of the game, but again, they're kind of dependent on drawing lands and also on Heartless Summoning sticking. Well, we've drawn a land. That's pretty good. I'm going to play the Peatland. Obviously, the life total is something to be concerned about, but against this deck, it shouldn't matter that much. And I want to not only be able to, like, play maybe 2 green creatures before our land next turn, like maybe if we draw another Tireless Tracker, that makes sense to do. I also want to conceal Ghost Quarter, right? I want to conceal information. Okay, well, we've drawn another land, so we could go Ob Nixilis, pass, but I think it's going to be better to go Tracker, because then we can get guaranteed landfall off of Ob Nix next turn. The only thing is that Ob Nixilis is going to be a better clock, because by the time it goes to attack next turn, it will be huge. So there is definitely some incentive here to just say, Ob Nix, pass to you. It'd be nice to know what's on the top of our deck in order to really make that assessment. I think I'm gonna err on the side of Tracker here. And it's not very mana efficient to play Goose, but I still think overall that's probably the play. It gives us the widest variety of ways to go off like crazy next turn. Because we can cast Ob by only tapping 2 lands, using Gilded Goose's Clue. And then from there, who knows what we can manage to do. Okay, so OP's going to Mystic Sanctuary to buy back their Wilt. Ah, this is unfortunate. This is really unfortunate. They're going to get to draw it now off of Growth Spiral. I hate these decks. And then they're going to wilt the Heartless Summoning before we get to cast Ob Nix. So we are punished. We are definitely punished. Yeah, that's going to resolve. I'm just trying to decide whether I want to use the Goose's Clue, the Goose's Food, rather, to crack the Clue, or whether we want to power out Ob Nix next turn anyway, using the Goose. I think we're supposed to play Ob Nixilis, so let's just untap. Alright. Really unfortunate that they got us with that, but hey. Alright, so this is all much more underwhelming than it would otherwise be. We're not cracking any clues. We didn't get a landfall trigger this turn. We're not double spelling, or in this case, cracking a clue because we haven't drawn a second spell. So we kind of have to hope that nothing too bad happens this turn, and then maybe we'll get there. Okay. Gilded Goose is the draw, not a very good one, but let's Ghost Quarter. Before anything else, we'll get that down. Always yes, always yield to Ob Nix, and we could definitely still get there. And they're just conceding. So we got a few different lines there. We can Ghost Quarter ourselves for another landfall trigger. Obviously, GQing the opponent is live against this type of deck. My idea there was to crack a clue, see what we drew, and then take it from there, but the opponent not even going to make us do that. So against a Scapeshift deck, and who knows what other control elements they might play. Clearly, we saw stuff like Wilt main deck. The presence of Wilt is going to be pretty tough, but Ashiok's a card. And from there, you know, I can see a lot of things that we like. Don't know that we'll really want Grafdigger's Cage, but I can see a lot of things that we could like. Like, I could see Maelstrom Pulse. I could see Veil of Summer, but this all depends on what else is in their deck that they haven't quite showed us. And you could even see a card like Thrun making sense here, but I do believe we're probably supposed to sideboard pretty conservatively here. I'm going to cut the Fatal Pushes. I'm going to play an Ashiok. And honestly, you know, until we see more, there might not really be many reasons to side out of things. You know, you could trim Vraska. Vraska seems kind of low impact, but the discard is good, including Collective Brutality. I think Trophy's probably good against the Valakut deck in terms of just pointing it at Valakut itself. I think all of our other threats and ramp pieces, we want to stay like as linear and explosive as possible. So what if we cut Vraska, then what are we expecting out of them? Veil of Summer, unfortunately, cannot beat Wilt on our Heartless Summoning, but still could beat some other things that they're up to potentially. But maybe we just like play Maelstrom Pulse as an out to Field of the Dead or any other things they might present. The Field of the Dead payoff, that is, all the zombies. And, I mean, do we want to bother with Thrun or do we play something else? I'm not sure. I kind of get the weird feeling that a Veil of Summer could help, but I'm not going to bring it in until I know more. You know what? I'm actually going to get these Plague Engineers in here. They can be reasonable against Field of the Dead. And just gonna cut the Pulse. I'm very willing to accept that this could well be wrong, but at the last minute, I'm kind of rejigging my thinking here. I want as many threats as humanly possible. Remember, even though Plague Engineer only attacks as a Grey Ogre, we can still have a turn where, like on turn 3, we're playing 3 threats. And at that rate, a 1-mana 2/2 is an okay attacker. And playing 2 Plague Engineers is another way to beat the zombies, right? This hand seems pretty good if we're drawing lands and they're slow out of the gates. I guess we're supposed to keep it. With them mulling, it still could definitely be too slow to get us there on the draw. I wish we had a Goose or a Summoning, obviously. Failing that, I wish we had like a discard spell. But I'm going to keep it and see where it takes us. We have trophies as our interaction. They don't really fit that well here because we already have... We're going to be plenty busy during the mid-game, right? When trophy hitting a land makes more sense. Oh boy, Renin 6. Okay. That's pretty horrendous for us. Also good to know about. Thoughtseize. I was just starting to wonder, are we really supposed to trophy a Ren? That seems so bad on so many levels. I'm going to Thoughtseize to get exact info, and that will help us determine whether or not to trophy said Ren. Okay, they do have Uro. You know, that's an argument for playing Grafdigger's Cage. At this rate, we're probably supposed to ignore the Ren. Maybe just put Uro in the bin. Give them a tension between buying back the lands and making their land drops that way and getting value that way, but also keeping the graveyard small for Uro. It's not terribly surprising to see Uro, right? But again, with their Valakut Scapeshift plan, it's a big question as to what exactly we want to dedicate our slots to and not to, right? OP Faction. Yeah, I'm seeing more reasons to play Maelstrom Pulse for sure, especially on the play. Yeah, Cage against Uro's fine, I guess. So opponent just played and bought back Misty Rainforest. I guess we can't really read anything into that because they could just be holding up Growth Spiral and Bolt. Okay. I'm just going to go for Dryad here. Hopefully this draws out, like, Permission, because I actually don't care that much if Dryad resolves, but if it does, it's fine, because then it's something that can't get just bolted. They'll have to maybe bolt and tick down. And I'm actually not going to play the Swamp, even though we have it, because we need to go Tracker into Swamp for a clue. Obviously, as you can tell, this is, like, really, really weak stuff compared to what our deck can do. So again, maybe it's possible that I'm not mulling aggressively enough with the deck. Maybe we have to mull almost all 7s that don't have Heartless Summoning or at least a Goose. Okay, we are getting the opponent to spend their resources on Dryad, which is a win. They've bought back Growth Spiral, so that's in their hand. We've drawn a Ramunap Excavator, that's actually pretty good. But it's Tracker time. See, now they have the Permission. Okay. We're in big trouble. This is just the type of progression that we have to go under a little bit. I'm going to play out the Swamp. At this point, we're going to play for higher upsides and just assume we're going to get lucky and, like, not get punished by, like, being able to resolve a Tracker. But, oh my god, the Mystic Sanctuary again, looping. Ooh, the Remand. Yeah, these cards all in conjunction are just horrendous. But as I was actually about to say, one reason we play the Swamp, not only should we assume we're going to get lucky here, but also we're not going to really be able to have things our own way. We're going to need to start, like, pointing trophies at Valakut to stay alive, potentially. Let's hope after all this and all the good interaction they've had and how clunky we've been, they don't just have Scapeshift on top of everything. They're playing a second Renin 6. Okay, not what I expected to see, but it does allow them to escape Uro. Yeah, we got big problems, my friends. They deploy Island, so they're not holding up Spiral. Hey, we draw Heartless Summoning. Okay. We know they have Remand. That's the big problem. So let's run the Summoning out into Remand, I guess, is the play. Because if for some reason they let it through, then we get to go off. But they're going to Remand this. And then I suppose we kind of have to trophy Uro. Yep. technically it's probably better practice to trophy with Remand on the stack, right? And then that's all we got, so we're clunked up. Opponents doing Uro, Valakut, Renin 6, Growth Spiral, Mystic Sanctuary things. They're doing big mana things. We hate to see it, right? But on the draw is always going to be a little bit tough for us. But yeah, they mulliganed. Our hand had potential. But once more, I do accept it could have been better practice for me to mulligan. I'm not certain. Opt is annoying because it's right off the top something valuable to do that gives them card selection when we finally got them low on cards, and also fills up the graveyard for Uro. But as it turns out, Uro is the least of our problems. Scapeshift has been found, presumably off of that Opt. Okay. We'll see us later. Yeah. Let's try to, like, GQ them out of the game on the play. That'd be pretty cool. I just still don't know. Vraska against Uro and Ren, these cards get better. We could consider Grafdigger's Cage, but this is a lot of stuff that's all kind of bad in most ways against their arguably biggest win condition, which is just Valakut, right? But they didn't show us Field of the Dead at all. I kind of assumed that was involved at least in some kind of, like, nominal capacity. So maybe we now can cut Plague Engineer relatively freely. We've also seen Remand, at least, Veil of Summer, becoming more attractive there. Who knows what else they have. I guess technically Thrun the Last Troll is in play against a Remand deck, but again, we're getting into the territory of too many cards coming in when I think we should be sideboarding relatively conservatively here. So there's nothing in the main deck I kind of don't like, but I do think that, like, the Dryad Azusa package is kind of weak in this deck simply because, like, there's a non-zero amount of times where you don't have enough lands to really capitalize on them. So I'm probably fine cutting Azusa against a Lightning Bolt deck. That's justifiable. I'm going to play Veils of Summer. I'm going to play... Yeah, I don't know how to rate what remains. Let's not play Thrun. I'm going to play Pulse. Maybe Pulse we rate more highly than Vraska, because it might be a little too slow. And then the big question is, do we play Cage for Uro? And for maybe other things? And if so, over what? Alright, I'm gonna play a single Cage. Let's just cut a Dryad. Whatever. Could go a few different ways here, of course. Alright, let's get a nice hand on the play here. We have... Well, I think this is nice enough. Goose, double brutality, Ashiok, yeah, I'm going to keep it. This is like a really weird hand relative to the composition of our deck, right? But I think it's keepable. Ashiok seems like a slam dunk against this deck, disrupting the graveyard and shutting off the search effects to the point where it could potentially be correct to cash in the clue for the turn 2 Ashiok, but I keep conflating food and clue. Cash in the food, I should say. Alright. Well, that's an option available to us. And it actually seems relatively tempting. Yeah, just the notion of, like, keeping Fetch Land stranded in hand on top of everything else seems really good, and I'm probably not going to activate Ashiok until I have to. We've also drawn Golgari Rot Farm, which is going to let us next turn cast a Brutality and then still make a land drop, despite having used our food this turn, so yeah, let's do that. right. Seems good. Seems good. Seems good. OP kicking things off with a top off of their opt. Steam vents. Alright, we don't want to see lightning bolts here at all. We've drawn Thoughtseize, huh? Well, I think Collective Brutality here is just about as good as Thoughtseize, also more mana efficient. So let's Brutality OP. Obviously, a big problem is that our hand does not provide pressure. Wow, opponent does not bolt in response. So I think we're just supposed to take bolt here, especially because we have other discard in hand. Yeah, we're taking the bolt. Golgari Rot Farm, not a bad draw at all under the circumstances, I don't think. An opponent has 2 fetch lands locked in hand. They do have another Steam Vents to play. They've drawn Ketria Triome. Is that how you say it? Ketria? Ketria, sure. And they don't run out the Uro into the Ashiok. We've drawn Swamp. Yeah, we're just going to take that Cryptic. They can have the Wilt, and I'm not going to Thoughtseize the Uro. So unfortunately, we're not really able to be that efficient with our turns, but we're still doing a lot of things. Ashiok really is doing a lot of things here. If only we had some pressure along the way, right? We've drawn Dryad. Okay, so opponent shocked in the Steam Vents. Can we really make anything out of that? I'm not sure. Dryad is technically pressure, but it's once again a kind of an underwhelming spot for it. So let's see what those 2 unknowns in their hand are, if they'll allow it. Cryptic, Bouncing Ashiok. Okay, just simply have to replay the Ashiok here. Whoops. Mistapped. That's alright. We don't have anything to do with that mana anyway. Now, is 1 activation worth it with Ashiok? The problem of not doing it is that they can just draw Mystic Sanctuary and buy back some really scary stuff. The problem with doing it is that it puts us down to 4, and then maybe we need to do it again, go down to 3 to get the Uro, and then it's soft to Lightning Bolt. So I think we're going to play around them not top-decking Mystic Sanctuary and leave our loyalty at 5. But that is the tension here, right? OP continuing to just draw lands that aren't shut off. It's pretty bad for us, honestly. Like, there was every chance that they would have missed a land drop that would have hurt them significantly by now. GQ. Interesting. GQ is interesting. I'm just deciding how highly we rate digging with Peatland versus playing the Dryad and where Ghost Quarter really factors into all of this. We definitely have to mill with Ashiok. Let's just see if the Dryad resolves. You know, we can still play it with through a Remand. And we want the Ashiok Mill to be the last thing we do for turn that has the potential to trade resources. Okay. Dryad's gonna stick. What we really need now is Ramunap Excavator and just go to town. And Ghost Quarter is now a Rainbow Land, so I'm going to crack Peatland, see what's going on. Thoughtseize, sure. Seems well-timed. It could whiff. We know one of the 3 cards in their hand it's gonna whiff on, but let's try it. Seems like a really good window for it anyway. Opponent will bolt in response on our Ashiok, and then our Thoughtseize will indeed whiff, but they have 2 bricks in hand, so now we definitely have to mill. And the opponent is in total top deck mode with bricks in hand. But our Ashiok is down to 1. So we want to fade the scary top decks, right? Gitrog Monster. Yo! Can't cast it yet, though. Oh, yes, we can! Oh, yes, we can, because I keep forgetting that Golgari Rot Farm can make 2. Yeah, okay. Ship in for 2 with the Dryad. Now we might be getting somewhere. Opponent's hesitation here is interesting. You do wonder what they drew. Remand would be a bit of a nightmare, but the hesitation on the attack step does not necessarily indicate that. Ooh, they're just F6'd. Cool. All right, Gitrog Monster resolves. Hope he's playing out those turns. Ashiok MVP. Okay, sweet. So we're untapping with Gitrog Monster. I'm not going to aggressively Ghost Quarter them unless we draw the component pieces to make that good. So GQ is going to be the thing that we sack. So let's float a black and then cash it in, see what we draw. Always yield to the Gitrog Frog. We've drawn Grasping Dunes, huh? So I guess using the floating mana to create a food is fine. We've drawn Ghost Quarter as well. Okay. Let's play both of these out. Let's attack for 8. Okay, so we can GQ ourselves, which I think is not the worst. I don't really want to GQ them. Like, I'd rather just kind of... Is making another land drop even that good for us? I'm not sure. GQing them, I think, is kind of bad, though. Or kind of neither here nor there. Nevertheless, I'm just gonna do it to draw a card. We've drawn Inquisition. Seems okay, but I don't think I'm gonna cast it right this second. Opponent says, you still there? Yeah, sorry. I'm definitely tanking over decisions that probably don't matter much. And obviously it's not a great spot for the OP, so my sympathies for my slow play. Sorry. What I was going to say, though, is I think, yeah, there's the concession. I think, like, using Inquisition to clear the way next turn makes more sense. But hey, we got there. And we got there, to be fair, not really so much on the Frogtown plan as we did on the turn 2 Ashiok on the play plan, but we beat one of the arch nemeses of the channel right now, which are the Temur Uro pseudo-control, pseudo-big mana piles. In this case, they're playing Scapeshift. The builds vary immensely. We didn't even have to GQ them out of the game, although that's probably our most consistent way to beat them with a deck like this. But hey, again, turn 2 Ashiok on the play, definitely putting in some work. And we are back. Yeah, sorry if I tanked kind of unreasonably at the end there. These types of play patterns, like, oh, you've drawn Ghost Quarter and there's no obvious use case, you know, what's the typical play pattern? They're not native to me, right? Well, our Golgari Rot Farm really killing us here in the opening hand. To be fair, like, a 2-lander with this on the play would probably be a mulligan anyway if it was a traditional, like, Overgrown Tomb or Fetch land. I think it's a mull. Let's put that heuristic into practice of mulling away the 7, mostly because it doesn't have Heartless Summoning or Gilded Goose. So, yeah. Send it back. This one's got it all. It's got the good interaction and the Heartless Summoning. I guess it doesn't have it all. It doesn't have any creatures, but we've got a deck full of them. We're going to draw one. We're going to keep. Definite keep. And interesting question as to what to bottom. I think I'm going to put Basic Forest back in the deck to put another Fetchable back in. And also to give us the chance of breaking up Tron with Ghost Quarter, things like that. But it does kind of incentivize us to fetch and shock here for the second green. Oh, let's see what their companion is. I haven't paid attention to that enough. It's Lurrus. Okay, so I'm assuming Rakdos Prowess, and therefore I'm actually not going to get the second green. I'm going to get a basic Swamp and Thoughtseize, and if it's some other deck, and if we do end up getting punished for not having a second green at some point, then I'll take my lumps, but this seems correct to me in the dark, and indeed it is. So, Abbot of Carroll Keep, double Lightning Bolt, Unearth. Take the Abbot. Our position would be great if they weren't a companion deck. Despite our lack of real payoffs and stuff, you know, I could assume that we're stalling the game long enough to get there. But with their powerful second wave of attack stalling the game long enough to get there, might not necessarily be enough. So what we need to do is now draw, not another land. We need to draw something to make this Heartless Summoning really good. Like, even a tracker would be amazing. What else would we like? Gitrog, Ramunap, stuff like that's fine for sure. Ob Nixilis is okay, if a little slow. Ooh, OP found a discard spell, looks like. No, they're going to unearth the Abbot. Whoa, they unearth the Abbot. Interesting. I just assumed this whole time they would be kind of saving that for Lurrus. I think that's good for us. They get a free land off of it. That's totally fine, right? Especially with this brutality, but we just can't draw any way to really capitalize, unfortunately. So, yeah. Are we going to fully escalate here? I don't think I can bring myself to fully escalate. We'll hold on to the backup swamp, and we will escalate twice to kill the abbot, take a spell out of the OP's hand. And pitch our GQ. Presence of Peatland also incentivizes us not to fully escalate, simply because we do have a bit of flood insurance. Okay, they have found a lava dart and another land. So, once again, Lurrus is the big, scary prospect. But if we draw another kill spell for Lurrus, or we finally draw, like, the huge half of the deck that's waiting for us to capitalize off Heartless Summoning, our position will be pretty good. Are they just going to use this turn to put Lurrus in their hand? If they haven't drawn anything else relevant, then almost certainly. Indeed they do. Oh, come on, deck. Oh, man. The wrong half of the deck. So bad. Okay, well, hey. Well, hey. We've got Trophy for Lurrus. That's a thing. Gives us, well, it's going to buy us a lot of time, right? Oof, but they found Abbot. Abbot into Kroxa? Oh no, this is like as bad as it gets. This really is about as bad as it gets. Okay, opponent's draws are completely perfect relative to our progression. We are punished very severely for just failing to draw a creature for this long. And now, like, there's nothing there's nothing really great to do here. We just kind of have to hope we draw Fatal Push. Gilded Goose. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, we're punished for, like, cracking the Peatland so badly, but we obviously had to. Let's just see what the opponent does. They don't have a bad play. Like, shoving with Abbot, not a bad play. Deploying Lurrus and the 5th land to buy back Abbot or Kroxa, not a bad play. Escaping Kroxa, not a bad play. There's literally nothing they can do here that's bad. And we are going to lose now, pretty much guaranteed. I can't think of draws that are going to really get us there. Insult to injury, we even have Trophy is the removal, so now they get to dart or bolt us with the Abbot attacking. We're just getting pretty unlucky here against these red decks, I have to say. We're down to 8. Lurrus is coming, and we draw Tracker after all that. Really? Really? Okay, I'm scooping. Yeah, it feels bad, but we are just soundly defeated. Yeah, I mean, we're playing a combo deck that kind of, you need a critical mass of lands, and you need the Heartless Summoning, and you need the creatures, not only to find them, but really for them to stick. And then after all that, they don't win the game. So this is kind of what we sign up for, or they don't like win on the spot, I should say. They will often win, though. So this is kind of what we sign up for, but you know what? It's okay. We will, I think with our opening 6 versus their opening 6, we can actually take a lot of those games home. We didn't this time, but we can take a lot of those home. And, unlike the aggro deck we faced in round 1, I'm not that interested in Plague Engineer here. Grafdigger's Cage, Ashiok to beat Lurrus both seem okay. I'm going to play the Cage. Ashiok is just pretty hard to defend and pretty expensive and kind of not value positive enough to the point where I could see leaving it out. But let's do this, and then I once again like cutting the fragile, expensive cards like Oracle, Azusa. We're going to cut at least one Thoughtseize. We'll put the other one over for consideration. I don't know if it's ever worth like trimming a Heartless Summoning. I'm not experienced enough to tell you what we think about that. I kind of like cutting a couple trackers here. Seems pretty good. Let's see. So I think I'm going to lean against Ashiok just because, like, if our deck goes off, we have the ability to overcome Lurrus or to, like, weather one or two Lurrus buybacks before we kill it. To the point where we, like, we are not that badly behind the 8-ball necessarily to getting X for 1 by Lurrus. Alright, I suppose Thoughtseize can go. They are a discard deck too, you know, it's a bad top deck, the life loss sucks. You can always justify a 1, but I'm not seeing other cuts, and we still need to make 2 more cuts, so why don't we do that? Tracker is just such an engine for the deck that even when it's bad, I still kind of want to leave 2 in. So let's play without Thrun. And let's just cut a Dryad. I think Dryad is one of the weaker cards in the deck synergistically, even though it's got a very high ceiling, and even though in terms of like how strong these cards all are in a vacuum, it's one of the actual best, right? And it's a 2/4, so, you know, toughness 4 is nice against red decks, but oh my goodness, look at this. We've got Hate, we've got Heartless Summoning, and we've got turn 3 Gitrog. This would be a perfect keep, but we have 4 of our 5 colorless hands in the opener. Could you possibly imagine a world in which this happens? Man, what on earth is going on? So, we have to... You know, strangely enough, I'm still really considering keeping this. Because if we draw a black land, it's on. You know, Ghost Quartering ourselves once to fix the mana is not the worst, and then Gitrog Monster is going to churn through the deck so well. Should I keep this for the memes? Should I keep this for the memes? Maybe our matchup's bad enough that we're supposed to keep it. I'm not certain. I think we kind of have to mulligan aggressively to Heartless Summoning in the matchup, and it's a Heartless Summoning 7. Keeping it, seeing what happens. Oh my goodness. This is pretty absurd. But sure. Opponent's probably pretty befuddled by A, the inclusion of Grasping Dunes at all, B, the fact that we lead on it. Oh man, imagine if they just Thoughtseize us after this keep. I guess, well, you know, that would be an incentive to have not mulligan too, right? You just can't win sometimes. You're just punished no matter what you do sometimes. OP going really aggressive with that bauble there. Number 1, not getting prowess value off of it. And number 2, like, activating it on their turn against our discard deck. I don't know if I understand that sequencing, but we draw Ob Nixilis the Fallen. Big yikes. Okay. Big yikes. So... we just have to get the Heartless Summoning down and hope to draw the right lands to cast this stuff. Gotta GQ ourselves, that's just what we're doing. Just what we're doing today. Well, the meme keep thus far is looking punished. We draw one of our 3 remaining 5 drops in the deck instead of drawing lands like we need to. But We draw Inquisition. Okay. So it's not a disaster yet. Inquisition, a good draw. Opponent on a one-lander. We're buying ourselves a lot of time. I would prefer a kill spell here, of course. They have Fatal Push. We don't care about that. I think we just have to take a 1-drop and hope they're going to keep getting screwed. So we'll take a Lightning Bolt. They don't keep getting screwed. They immediately top deck the second land. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, if they can top deck the lands they really need, so can we. So can we, right? We gotta have some faith here. An opponent looks like they're gonna bolt us here to race. And if so... Oh no, they're gonna hold up bolt, sure. Oh man. We draw Assassin's Trophy. Well, I guess we're GQing ourselves yet again, which is just crazy. But then we're just hoping Gitrog Monster is something they can't easily answer, but we know they can. They've got Seal of Fire and Lightning Bolt. They're going to shrink it to a 1/1. And then if they can't kill it from there, they are just going to... they're just going to force us to trade it off. But I mean, our hand doesn't do anything else. We have to GQ ourselves to play anything else, so why not go for the highest possible upside of Gitrog? Maybe we keep it around, and we draw lands and good interaction and stuff. I don't know, guys. Obviously, this keep was a bit of a meme keep. Oh, you know what? This is even worse than I thought, because it's going to be a 5/5 alongside Heartless Summoning. Whatever. Make the opponent see it, but it's just dead to Bolt and Seal of Fire. But, like, again, we do literal nothing and die otherwise. Honestly, the keep looks pretty dumb. But if we had drawn one colored land, it would have been fine. And we certainly can't just GQ ourselves to trophy the opponent, because then we're giving them the third land and they get to Kolaghan's Command and Larissa's online, so we just don't have any real good plays. Opponent leading on Abbott. Okay. They drew the third land. Okay. Are we supposed to take a trade while we can? I'm going to say no. Let's make them Seal of Fire us. It's just bad no matter what. Yeah, they do. It's just bad no matter what. Grazing Gladehart. That will die to Fatal Push. So we're going to slow roll it and wait for at least a land drop. And I guess we're finally going to have to trophy something. But you understand how this is just hopeless, because we trophy, we're still on the ropes. They've got K Command to buy stuff back, they've got Luris. It's just kind of all over for us. So yeah, OP keeps a one-lander. They curve out. We keep a four-lander. We don't draw basically anything good. But as always, we'll say that maybe the mulligan was just correct. Maybe the mulligan was just correct. But are we beating this curve out with like any 6 our deck can provide? It seems unlikely. Lightning Bolt, too. Good God. Good God, the curve out. Dryad of the Ilysian Grove. Okay, we're still dead because they can actually still target something with Fatal Push and just swing for 2, even if it doesn't kill. Yeah, okay, completely crushed. yet again. So, yeah, again, the keep looks silly, but I actually think that... You guys tell me, right? You guys tell me. I actually think the keep was kind of good. Because so many 6s just can't win. And especially without Heartless Summoning. So if we mulligan to the perfect 6 with Heartless Summoning, and it's like Inquisition and Push and Brutality and Summoning, and then we do top deck the creatures that we failed to in Game 1 when we had Summoning online, then obviously we do have some good progressions. But overall, the only reason this was that much of a disaster is because we had to GQ ourselves twice. We expect to probably only have to do that once, because in a 24-land deck, drawing a single colored source is going to go a long way. Okay, it is round 4. We've won the die roll. We have just a really weird hand. I'm probably going to keep it and hope we draw land. 24-land deck, we should. We should. And hopefully Inquisition, Thoughtseize, and Brutality can clear the way to the point where Ramunap can stick and buy back the 4th land. And then we're going Vraska mode, and we're just playing like a really reasonable mid-range game here. We do have to draw that 3rd land, though. But we're going to have 2 turns to do so. An opponent has mulliganed all the way down to 5. Okay, it's a big mana deck with Dark Confidant, Explore, and Search for Tomorrow. We'll take the Search for Tomorrow. We can kill Bob with Brutality. We can also Thoughtseize him away if we prefer to do that. Let's see a land. Ooh, we see another Thoughtseize. It's probably pretty good, but if we just lose this seemingly unlosable Game 1... from not ever drawing the 3rd land, I'll be pretty sad, right? But let's take Explore. Opponent drawing land is probably pretty good for them there. And that's what they've done. Okay, there's the Bob. Okay, deck. We've drawn Fatal Push. Oh, missing the lands again. Again. All right. I'm just going to push Bob. I suspect that Brutality has better use cases. So even though it's a little less mana efficient, we are just going to push Bob. Yeah, we cannot afford variants of this significantly bad, right? If we're playing a deck like this. But hey, there's a very awkward 3rd land drop in the form of Grasping Dunes. We'll take it. Grasping Dunes, play the Excavator. Excavator is going to buy back a Catacombs next turn. And then we're actually looking at the prospect of GQing the opponent out of the game. So maybe we actually will just start GQing right away. We'll see. Opponent goes Search for Tomorrow, Hardcast. There's still... No, they played Forest. So there's 2 unknowns in their hand. Okay. So we have the potential of kind of spinning our wheels in terms of our own land drops, but starting the GQ plan, or we can just make a land drop, play Vraska, start getting value. I'm a little afraid of Hour of Promise, so I kind of want to Thoughtseize and GQ this turn. But we'll at least Thoughtseize, and then if we decide we don't need to GQ aggressively yet, we can just get card advantage by playing Verdant Catacombs from the graveyard. Oh, they have 2 Hour of Promise? Well, good thing we've got this Collective Brutality, am I right? Yeah, I don't think we need the GQ quite yet. So let's get card advantage going here. They don't have the 5th land to cast it yet, but obviously they could top deck it, right? And I'm going to escalate to Drain just to increase our own clock. Not so much worried about our life total here. And also because we can buy back lands very nicely with good old Ramunap Excavator, who I think is the MVP of this deck in many ways. So now the plan is to lay down the beats with the 2-3, get Vraska down if we have the luxury, the wiggle room to do so, and of course GQ OP straight out of the game. Let's attack first. Alright, I think we're going to lay down Vraska here. Okay, a little punished for tapping both our green lands because we can't play Goose, but I think that's fine. Sakura Tribe Elder, sure. Let's attack. I expect block sack here. No? Okay, interesting. Alright, I'm going to lead on Goose and then take Vraska up, cashing in the food to draw. And then I think it's high time we go on the GQ plan. We've got another one in hand, just in case this loop isn't good enough. I don't want to turn on Fatal Push, but obviously they can turn it on all on their own, so never mind that. We've got kind of an uncomfortable amount of lands that we've drawn. Okay, so let's move to the next phase so their floated mana goes away. And then I guess on their draw step, I'm going to GQ again. That's the concession. All right, GQing the big mana deck out of the game feels pretty good, but really their mulligan plus our black-based disruption is what did it. We had... what? 1 Inquisition, 2 Thoughtseizes, a push, and a Brutality, all of which hit. All of which were relevant against a big mana deck, which certainly won't happen all the time, but this is a green-black variant. Maybe they played Dread Presence. Certainly they play Dark Confidant, so there are many things to consider here. Plague Engineer seems okay. It could line up against the field zombies. It kills Bob. It kills Tribe Scouts? Tribe Elders. It kills Tribe Elders. We've got to remember which Sakura Tribe blank we're dealing with. You could make similar arguments for Liliana of the Veil. I don't know how much green-black interaction they'll bring in post-side, but she can help with the attrition game if that's a thing. Ashiok, on the other hand, seems a little lower impact. Still potentially worth playing. They still, for all I know, play the card Primeval Titan. But I'm kind of lumping it in with just a lot of this stuff, and Veil of Summer is also similarly questionable just because I don't know how much black-based interaction they're likely to play. If they are going full attrition mode, Obstinate Baloth and Chameleon Colossus could be intriguing. Chameleon Colossus actually wins through the zombies, right? Zombies are black. Forgive my more questions than answers during these sideboarding processes. We're against some somewhat unusual decks. Big mana decks are all over the place these days. In any case, we also probably don't have that many cards to side out, so once again, I think Azusa's a little weak, a Dryad's trimmable. Vraska was good there, but I'll cut her here. Just gotta trim around the edges a little bit, I guess. I'm actually gonna cut one Brutality once again, even though that was pretty good. I'm gonna value Plague Engineer somewhat highly here. We'll see how that pans out. I'm also gonna play Ashiok. It's just good practice. You know, when you're not sure, play the card that has the potential for the free win. And why don't we just toss a cheeky Chameleon Colossus in there as another threat, because we have moved away from some kind of mid-sized, mid-costed creatures. Alright, well, we've got Heartless Summoning, so even though we don't disrupt that well, I'm going to keep it. Oracle of Mul Daya, Plague Engineer, two pretty interesting cards that I'm eager to see how Oracle performs overall, and how Plague Engineer performs in this matchup. Okay, Ghost Quarter. If we find the right cards, could be good. Don't want to see Bob here. They have Bob. Dang. Okay. Bob on the play is pretty rough when we have no interaction. Ooh, Inquisition coming a turn too late. Well, nothing much to be done about it now. I'm not going to Inquisition. I'm going to instead just play Heartless Summoning. Have a really good turn next turn, hopefully. Bob will do some damage, but we can play a 1-mana Plague Man to kill him. Maybe they'll play a second Bob out. That'd be really good. Maybe they go like tap land, second Bob, pass, and we're okay. And we're gonna be okay. Oh boy. Bob flipping the Triome. Hey, there's the tap land, but they don't play it. Uh-oh. What are we in store for now? Explorer. Okay. There's still a chance they're going to play out a second Dark Confidant. They play the Triome. Second Bob. One-time second Bob. Oh, Tarmogoyf. Yikes. What the heck is the opponent doing with Tarmogoyf in the deck? Interesting. I'm unfamiliar, but hey, Plague Engineer can trade with that after it kills Dark Confidant in theory, so that's all good. Ramunap Excavator. Now we're talking. Now we are talking. So, Plague Engineer into Oracle into another land drop, which is going to let us either Inquisition or Excavator. I guess exposing the GQ here is fine, right? There's Gitrog Monster on top. Fair enough. Alright. I suppose Inquisition here is correct. We get Sakura Tribe Elder. Plague Engineer naming human. Love it. Love it. Their hand is Bojuka Bog Valakut. We're about to GQ them out of the game if they cannot find answers. I'm not certain if we're supposed to trade Engineer for Goyf here. We get punished for that if they have another Bob, right? Yeah, I'm just completely not certain. I think like taking the trade while it's available is fine though. This is a really good 2-for-1 on the back of Plague Engineer, who you could imagine not being good enough in many cases against this deck, so... Okay, Pulse of Murasa, we get max punished for it. Obviously, the opponent's doing stuff we have no idea about, but hey. Dark Confidant's back. That's bad news. But you know what's good news is we get to go Gitrog, Ramunap Excavator, all kinds of good stuff this turn. Let's figure out our sequencing here. I guess we go Gitrog, Fetchland, because we get to draw a card that way. And just start GQing, maybe? I'm not sure. You could do this a couple different ways. I'm going to do it this way. We have 2 land plays remaining. Good to know. Good to know. Frogtown, baby. Now we can play a Ghost Quarter off the top of the deck, too. Yeah, I guess this signals us to go on the GQ plan. Alright, so I will GQ there. Just Valak it right now, buy back a GQ. Draw a card. It's Tracker. Okay, the value plan continues. I think we can outvalue a Bob this way, guys. What do you think? Seems pretty good to me. Yeah, let's just keep GQing them out of the game. We could get more value off the top, but I think that's unnecessary. I'll attack with the Oracle. You want to trade with me, Dark Confidant? No, didn't think so. You're at 21. Okay, on their draw step, it's GQ time. They drew a basic land off of Bob. That's really good for us. Because, of course, all we want is to punish them with... Yeah, okay. They concede to our first of what would have been many GQ activations. So, obviously, this is pretty frustrating for opponents to play against. I acknowledge this. But hey, so far, 2 Field of the Dead decks, or 2 big mana decks, I guess 2 Valakut decks at least, we have just kind of GQ'd out of the game or have otherwise stopped them from doing their thing. So in that sense, we are serving the people. We are serving the meta by making the big mana decks question their decision to play big mana. And we all know that everybody could use a little less big mana in their lives. So Frogtown doing the Lord's work here. And hey, I guess we're 2-2. We're putting up an okay result. There's been some really weird games, but let's try to cash. Well, we're doing pretty well with winning the die roll. That definitely seems to help on this deck. And hey, we've got some stuff. This is a keep. This is a keep, my friends. We've got the Goose, and now that we also have Summoning, it's pretty cool, actually, with us if they bolt the Goose, but if they don't, again, it is a mid-range mana dork. We can always find use cases for it. Not always. It's actually been kind of clunky, but we haven't really gone off fully with the deck yet, like I have in some warm-up games. In any case, another Heartless Summoning. That's kind of an ugly draw, but we'll play the first one. Or we'll play one of them more accurately. I guess technically we just played the second one. And then we'll say go. An opponent went Snow-Covered Forest pass, so I have no idea what we're up against. Waterlogged Grove, oh my goodness, Neoform, really? I didn't read them for Neoform, but maybe I should have and cast Collective Brutality, but really off of Forest Pass? Are we supposed to do that? I kind of doubt it. I think we kind of have to try to get our own combo online, our own much less powerful combo online. Well, the weird games are going to continue because we're going to have no agency in Neoform as usual, or very little agency. At least we are a discard deck, which is more than some archetypes can claim, so we will have the potential of finding interaction that matters, finding interaction that lines up, and using those things to win the game. But this is actually another matchup where I could see GQing them out of the game being good if our discard does slow them down enough. We're going to want to play Grafdigger's Cage for Neoform and Summoner's Pact. Creature cards in graveyards and libraries cannot enter the battlefield, so never, actually, just Neoform. No. I'm talking about the other one. I just can't remember it. Eldritch Evolution, there we go. Ashiok, though, will shut off this search effect. Children of Corliss, opponent at 57 life. Just styling on us over there. Edge of Autumn to cycle. This is why you make them play it out. Okay, they have Labman, sure. Interesting, I was like wondering where the second blue for Thassa's Oracle was, but I'm sure they had more Monomorphosi anyway. In any case, Cage, Ashiok, probably about it, right? We could play a Maelstrom Pulse to beat, like, the Resolved Gristlebrand or Allosaurus Rider army, but without the ability to finish us off. But we're probably just supposed to leave trophies in for that job and not bother with Pulse. But if we have enough really bad cards, maybe we could. I mean, Fatal Push is pretty dead. If we have one other cut to make, I could see playing a Pulse. But do we have another cut to make? All the other remaining interaction is good enough. And everything else is just like a linear Frogtown card. Besides, maybe Vraska Golgari Queen. Okay, I'm going to trade out Vraska for a Pulse. I think that's good. The only other thing we could do is say, can we get any more efficient with our threats? Like, do we want to just play like a 4/4 in the form of like Baloth or Chameleon Colossus? Probably not. You know, they're only slightly better at attacking than other things, and I think the value town nature of the other things is where we want to be. Not that we're trying to outgrind the opponent, but that we are trying to chain together our big go-off turns, our GQ them out of the game turns, things like this. Alright, so we know it's Neoform. We got a hand. We got double discard. We've got Heartless Summoning as well. It is a keep. This is the type of hand we need. It still doesn't have a very quick clock, but we disrupt well enough that I hope it's not an issue. If they don't have Veil of Summers in, now they will after this, right? So it's Labman in their opener, which is bad for them, Serum Visions, and double Eldritch Evolution, huh? So one mode of attack is just to take Serum Visions and then go Heartless Summoning next turn, but I think it's probably better to take this Eldritch Evolution than take the other away next turn with Brutality. Also, just like getting green cards out of their hand is going to make life that much tougher for them. In general, when in doubt, you can use, is this card green or is it not, as like a decent tiebreaker, right? They go bot with Serum. Another Dryad. See, these just aren't very good a lot of the time. These Dryads. In my experience, in my limited experience with the deck. Summoner's Pact and Wilt were their two finds. Well, we're not going to take Wilts. I guess we just still keep hitting the Evo here. We could get punished if they draw Neoform, but they're not going to draw Neoform, right? I don't even know if I want to play Heartless Summoning because it reduces our clock. Yeah, I don't think I do. Not yet. You know, we might top deck Gitrog Monster or something that makes us want to do that. But for now, I'm actually just going to play a 2-4 beater. And play out that land. It is going to remain uncracked probably for the whole time that we can help it, just because landfall triggers for Tracker and Ob Nixilis and stuff are good. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. Ramunap Excavator, huh? So if we go... I just wish we had a Ghost Quarter, right? Well, let's just attack first. So right now we can make like all the land drops we need to, but we are not GQing them out of the game, sadly. So my first thought was like Heartless Summoning, Excavator into Dryad, we buy back 2 lands, but like I still don't want to reduce our clock. So I think I'm actually just going to play Excavator. And we will not be able to play the other Dryad this turn, but I think that's okay. Whoops. Oh no, I forgot to make my second land drop. I just didn't click auto yields in time. So yeah, okay, what am I doing? We could have played the Dryad. That was just bad. I'm going to fetch with one of these to thin. Also, because now that we have Ramunap sticking around, we can, make all the land drops we need for landfall triggers. Assassin's Trophy. This is all pretty weak stuff, my friends. But sure. Okay, they found the Allosaurus Rider, they exile a Summoner's Pact, and they have the Neoform. Oh no! So their only card in hand is Labman. At least we can trophy the Gristlebrand here in response to the first draw 7. So we gotta hope their 7 that they find here isn't very good. Sadly, they're not quite dead on board, and I think it's because I failed to play Dryad there. Oh, they found another Summoner's Pact, huh? Okay, well, maybe it won't matter, because maybe they'll just find... Yep, they found Neoform and Pact in that 7 again, huh? Oh my goodness, alright. I don't think we can shrink a Gristlebrand that much with Grasping Dunes to kill him. Oh, Oh, land off the top. Come on, deck. Okay, literally just going to triple Grasping Dunes the Griselbrand this turn. It does something. And it's kind of cool, but it's also just depressing. Especially because it got started with a free +1/+1 counter off of Neoform. It's cheating. It's cheating. Opponent says that is sweet, haha. Lol, right? If only we were against a deck where it really mattered. Okay, that's all the dunes we've got. An opponent still has really good blocks despite that, so we just say go and probably plan on losing to Griselbrand, but they are paying for Summoner's Pact here, which is a thing. Okay, OP going down to 4. Going up to 21, or 19. Oh my god. They're finding it all, they're finding it all. To be fair, it is what the deck does, right? Still pretty rough, though. Yeah, I mean, they just found the Neoform too quickly after we took away 2 Eldritch Evolutions. I don't think there's much we can do about that. So it looks like we're falling to a sub-average finish with Frogtown, 2 and 3. We'll make them, you know, not get unlucky here, basically. Make them execute the combo, but it's hard to see us not dying here. And they Summoner's Pacted for Wild Canter. Is that what just happened? That's intriguing. Anyway, I suppose that means we are dead. Oh yeah, they had Ladman in hand. We knew that. They had it in hand from the start. You know, I didn't think about this at all at the time, but there's maybe an outside consideration to take away the Ladman simply because it could cripple them in terms of win conditions, but seems incorrect to me, but you guys can let me know what you think. Anyway, this was one of the strangest leagues I've ever played. It wasn't a great result, but we're not playing a meta deck. 2 and 3 happens to the best of decks, so we'll take a 2 and 3. Again, especially because we made the big mana decks wish they never registered themselves in the queues today, and that's really all we can ask. This is exactly what I thought when first looking at the deck. Honestly, I was like, you know, there's a lot of cute stuff here, there's a lot of strong stuff here, but I think the thing this deck does almost more than anything else is, like, disrupt a little bit with traditional black-based interaction, and then GQ opponents out of the game. I think that is unironically, like, the most realistic win con. In the practice lobby, warming up for this, getting a little bit of familiarity with this, I did have some, like, insane progressions. My first batch of, like, 4 games, every single 7 was nutty, and I was just crushing, like, Jund and ad nauseum and stuff. Sadly, we didn't really get to do that today. We didn't have very many progressions that were in the top bracket, like the top 10% of progressions. We saw, I think, maybe 1, maybe none. Hard to say exactly, right? But nevertheless, you know, with some of those really good progressions, Tracker can just go crazy. Ob Nixilis can just go crazy. I'm sad that I think for the second time in a row, not in a row, but the second time I've ever played this on the channel, Ob Nixilis didn't really do anything. But in some of the practice games, he really was the best card, and he really was, you do see why he's in the deck. It's tempting to say, okay, he's win more, or he's too clunky, and you want to shave from the top end. Ob Nixilis wins otherwise unwinnable games, and he wins them in a real hurry. So my practice experience leads me to believe that even though he didn't do anything in this league, we didn't really see him, didn't have good windows to play him when we did see him, he's definitely a good one. The thing that I'm a little skeptical of is the Dryad Azusa package. I just think, like, too often we don't have enough lands to make Dryad that good unless Dryad is comboing with Excavator. I guess Excavator specifically, more than, like, almost any other card. Like, if you happen to have just a handful of lands and, like, a Dryad and an Ob Nixilis or something, then, yeah, obviously Dryad can help you get those out of your hands sooner. But overall, I'm skeptical of Azusa. I realize how powerful Dryad is. I could see maybe trimming one. Take all this for what it's worth, though. I am new to the deck. As you saw from today, my play is not expert by any means. But those are kind of the cards that feel a little less exciting. I do like Oracle of Mul Daya. It feels trimmable just because it's so fragile, right? In a lot of matchups. But Oracle of Mul Daya, Vizier of the Menagerie is kind of the Oracle equivalent for finding creatures off the top of your deck. So these cards are definitely worth considering. I like the one of Vraska a lot. I think this is worth persisting with. I think the top end is correct. I don't know if, like, Trophy and Brutality are necessarily cards that we need to be main decking, or if we are main decking interactive slots like that, whether they're correct. In the deck tech, I said that I think the theory behind them is sound. And I stand by that. Like I said in the beginning, Brutality and Trophy are two of the most flexible black-green interactive cards out there, and they are catch-alls, which we kind of need them to be. In theory, we don't care about the downside of Trophy as much, because we can go over the top value-wise of most decks, but in practice, you saw how bad Trophy kind of was, and how, like, in their red aggro matchups, like, Brutality wasn't good enough against the Obosh deck. Trophy ramping the Luris deck was a disaster, stuff like that. So I wonder. I just wonder. I don't have an answer. I think the theory behind including them is sound, but at the same time, they do feel like a little bit of a slot that could be re-examined. Otherwise, I think, honestly, I'm thinking about a fourth Ramunap Excavator. Obviously, they don't do much in multiples, but the redundancy through removal, the density of likelihood to draw one, I think this card is, like, the best card in the deck, very nearly, if not literally. So that could definitely be something to look into. Sideboard, you could go a million different directions. The presence of Heartless Summoning allows you to have a much wider, legit maybe board than a normal deck would have. So the world is your oyster with a sideboard. I think our sideboard cards that were not Heartless Summoning oriented, though, performed very well. Ashiok stole us a game. Plague Engineer was amazing against the green-black deck, and if we had faced other matchups, obviously, where Plague Engineer traditionally shines, he could be the gap bridger, if you will, into our late game. Grafdigger's Cage, we had a lot of matchups where it came in. Unfortunately, we didn't open on it against Neoform or anything, but our post-side keep against Neoform was great. They just still beat us. So there you go, guys. This was Frogtown 2.0 for Connor Smith. And Connor, I appreciate you greatly, my friend. This was, it was a fun league, definitely a fun league. I just have those questions. I would love to hear your thoughts on them, and maybe I'm off base. You are more experienced with the deck than I am. There's plenty of people out there, I'm sure, that are also more experienced than I am. But at the same time, my instincts for this type of stuff are usually at least decent. Sometimes I'm missing something. More often than not, I think it's worth at least considering. So yeah, skeptical of porting so much of this Dryad Azusa type stuff into a deck like this, unless maybe we raise up the land count. That could be a way to really make that stuff shine. And that would probably have to come at the expense of interaction, and I don't know whether that's worth it, but these are things to think about. Connor, I hope this was good for you, my friend. We didn't do the greatest, a lot of kind of binary matchups, but I think when you go into a format as powerful and as well established as Modern with a deck like this, you're going to kind of take the wins you can get and hope to catch enough people with their pants down, which we didn't quite manage to today, to get really good results. But again, the GQ Excavator package looking like MVP to me. So thank you so much for watching, my friends. Yeah, it's fun to play decks off the beaten path. But if you look at like the majority of the decks, it seems lately, or like that I'm playing for donation leagues, are like playing this off meta thing or doing a spin-off, an experimental thing off of an established archetype. It's all good, but I'm kind of hankering to play like super finely tuned competitive stuff as well. So hopefully we get into some of that. Hopefully we strike the right balance between stuff like this and stuff that we're able to put up stronger results on average with. But this was really fun. Styling on people in the warm-up games, I wish we got to style as hard here at least once as we did in the warm-up games, but it was not to be. We still got a couple wins, and we'll take it. So thanks again for watching. Thank you again to Connor Smith, as well as to all Patreon supporters, and I will see you guys for the next video. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.